Our next panel discussion is a session that marks the shift from opening bank to open finance, introducing a broader, more inclusive financial ecosystem. We'll dissect the roles of various components: BaaS, banking as a service; LaaS, lending as a service; PaaS, payments as a service; and IaaS, infrastructure as a service, and how they collectively foster scalability and flexibility in financial services. This discussion will illuminate how everything as a service, XaaS models are pivotal in transforming the accessibility and efficiency of financial services. May we have with us Abhijit Singh, Group Head, BaaS, International Banking and Digital Ecosystem Banking, HDFC Bank, to join us on stage, along with Hitesh Sachdev, Head, Startup Engagement, Innovative and Investments, ICICI Bank, Anupam Bagchi, Founder, Upswing, Puneet Chahira, VP, Head of Product Management and Marketing, Infosys Financial, Manish Kumar Gupta, Senior Vice President and GM, Glance TV. We would also like to inform you that in Studio One, there is a masterclass going on with demystifying money mule fraud with Bureau, with Nikhil and Apurva from Bureau. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're running a little late, so we'll kind of start off. Thank you everyone for coming, and we have a very distinguished panel today. So we have like people from all walks. We have two largest banks in the country who've kind of done a lot in kind of opening financial services for people. We have the new age startup founder, Anupam, and basically we have Puneet, whose systems actually power, I think, almost, I would say, 70 to 80% of all banks, not just in India, but the world. So a very interesting panel today. And I think this is a very apt session just after what Mahesh said, that we used, so open banking, which was one of the biggest things in Europe. We've actually, as India, we've transformed all of that. We've moved away from or rather leapfrog from open banking to open finance, which effectively means that today we are not just passing with the consent of the customer the banking data, but basically insurance data and many others to actually provide a lot of value to the users. So basically we'll talk about a couple of themes. We'll talk about technology innovation. We'll talk about the experience that has been enhanced with open finance. We'll talk about some challenges that everyone is facing, and of course the biggest thing which makes this happen is collaboration between banks and fintechs. So I'll kind of just maybe go around once. I'll request each of the panelists to introduce themselves in the context of what how they've kind of helped the open finance area, and then maybe we'll ask questions from all of them. So Abhijit.
So I'm Abhijit. I head the group within HDFC Bank, which is very new, is around banking as a service, ecosystem banking and international banking. Hitesh and I used to work together in ICICI, so now I'm in HDFC Bank.
I am Hitesh Sachdev. I am part of ICICI Bank, and I manage all the startup investments, startup partnerships and innovation at ICICI Bank. And I think on the topic, right, banking as service or lending as service, right? I think what we believe is that the partnerships are, way of life. I mean, there are two ways to grow, right? One is the organic growth where, you can kind of keep acquiring customers, on your own. And there is another way of, inorganic way of growing by partnering with a lot of, partners who complement your, banking, right? I mean, so I believe that, for any institution or any bank, I think partnerships are a way of life. And if one wants to be on that journey of partnership, I think, customers can come from anywhere. And if you want to cater to, customers who are using different platforms, whether be it Amazon or Zomato or Uber, and if you want to provide, banking experience, I think that's how one should think about that. Banking becomes invisible, and you facilitate what the customer wants. When a customer wants to buy something on a platform, the banking should be an ancillary thing, right? The main thing is somebody wants to buy it, and if you are unable to enable finance or payments, everything on that platform, that journey becomes seamless, and that's where the model comes into play, where how do you API everything and offer the entire banking as a service on other platforms through APIs, make your bank invisible, embed it in those customer journeys. So that's, I think, our take, that we believe that that's the future, and that's the way banks will also operate as this evolves more and more, right?
Hi, I'm Anupam Bagchi. I'm the founder of Upswing. Upswing came into existence because we have been talking about open banking, API banking, embedded finance, and BaaS for almost 5-7 years in LinkedIn platforms. But we felt that nothing was happening meaningful. So, I had to leave my job and therefore start a company. And therefore now I'm collaborating with almost everybody on this panel and almost everybody outside to do an impact into that. And therefore what we essentially do is, and in one of the VC platforms happening in one of the tracks, they said that fintech is on the left side, banks are on the right side, they don't understand each other. So basically what we try to do is we do some matchmaking as a marriage between the two entities. And therefore what we are trying to do is essentially take retail banking products out into B2C interfaces so that banking or financial services, both in NBFC world and banking world, can get seamlessly embedded in the shortest possible time, in the best consumer-centric manner, and in the most compliant and infosec manner, which is the most important pillar. So that's what we do, or what we are trying to create as an ecosystem build-up in the environment.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for your time, and congratulations to Sameer and Shashank for putting it all together. My name is Puneet. I am responsible for product management and marketing globally at Finacle. I've been very fortunate to work with all the gentlemen here, as well as many of you in the audience. Thanks to you, we do a lot of work in this space, all across making sure the data is available, making sure one can create personalized products, whether they are originated in the bank or outside the bank with ecosystems, as well as working with many fintech partners on making sure their proposition can be easily adopted by our clients globally.
Thanks a lot for the introduction. I think there is, like we said, right, we have like every point of connection between the various entities to actually provide lots of value. So maybe Abhijit, banking as a service, right? That's a very interesting term, and now that's kind of moving on to, we said XaaS, anything as a service, right? So if you can kind of give maybe just a short brief of how basically you've at HDFC used banking as a service or XaaS as a service to provide a lot of value to your consumers, and basically which would be one of your most or a couple of very interesting use cases where the service has been valued by the users.
So, ours is the youngest department or the youngest business unit within HDFC Bank. We've just been formed around October of last year. When first time this proposition came to me that, why don't you lead banking as a service, I felt banking was always a service. So what is this banking as a service? Yeah. So we started from basics that, what exactly are we talking about? And one of the realizations that came to me also, that you use the app that is actually giving you all the services you want. So you've got so many apps on your mobile phone, and you have a tendency to use one of the apps always. Let's say if you're a Zomato guy, you will use Zomato. If you're a Swiggy person, you will use Swiggy. But very rarely in my friend circle, I found somebody who has both the apps. So what we realized that, this is like tomorrow's world is going to be on your mobile phone. And it's very important that, we have a kind of place there, just like, the Pepsi bottle in a Kirana store. It has got a place, yeah. Similarly, I'm not equating the two, but it's something like that. You should have banking services there wherever you are. And only your imagination can take it to wherever you want to be. So one of the questions that we had as a team was that, let's say we have all these questions, let's say you have a ride booking app and you take a taxi from, let's say, Worli to Nariman Point every day, and you take a taxi from Bandra to Nariman Point every day. Who do you give more money based on the data you got there? Yeah? And you realize that, what we heard earlier, plus what the banks, if you overlay the data, automatically the answer is clear. So as Anupam rightly said, there's no point in being on left and right. It's all about, how do the two parties start working with each other. So what we have set up, as our motto is, can we reach every customer where they are? And, if you look at it, banks have, ICICI Bank would have a couple of million customers, we would have a couple of million customers. But the payments have probably multiplied by 10 times customers, yeah, and probably no branches. So what's there to learn from them? So we looked at, what's there, what can we learn from them, and that's how we are progressing on our products, and how do we market those products, what are the kind of things, where can it help the customer, what's the customer segment, and, as in life, statistics plays a very important role. So we're looking at what are the 3 Sigma products, standard deviation 3 Sigma, not looking at that, the outliers in which banks normally get confused and, make their strategy. So that's on looking at, banking as a service. But we felt that, if you overlay that with ecosystem, what's happening in India, today we are at a certain point in our life cycle as a country. But tomorrow's GDP will all come from the digital public infrastructure. And therefore, it's important to be a part of that. What can we contribute to organizations like ONDC, what can we contribute to other digital public infrastructure? And that's where our thought process is that, how do we get to those areas? How are we able to, the mandate that I have is to reduce our cost to serve, not, by 10%, 20%. It's a number which all of us were at shock, that how do you achieve that? Now, if we have to achieve that number, the kind of products, the kind of customer base, the way we approach has to go through a tectonic shift. Yeah? And that's the agenda in front of us.
Very interesting, Abhijit. Basically, I think data is something that is so ready, so much available with the consent of the user, and it's interesting to see how you're using that for bringing a lot of value. So coming to Hitesh, Hitesh, basically ICICI has always been at the cusp of innovation. I'm an ex-ICICI banker, and basically we've been kind of living that. But I think at an innovation side, there is, I'm sure, with so much happening in the open finance area, what are the key innovations that you've done in the recent past that has maybe changed, that you believe have changed the landscape for a certain set of users? If you can give some examples of that, and basically about how those expectations from consumers have actually maybe exceeded of the products that you've launched.
Yeah. I think at ICICI Bank, we always believed that, technology is the force multiplier for all our businesses. And, digital is at the core of our strategy, So we realized that, as I mentioned earlier, there are 2 ways of, growing, right? One is organic way and second is the inorganic way. So if you want to partner, right, and offer products to the customers at the moment of truth, the customer expectations are changing, right? And they don't want to shuffle between multiple platforms or multiple mobile apps, to avail, a banking service, right? So if I am, buying something on Amazon, probably if I get, the loan also on the same platform, that kind of makes my experience superlative, right? And we don't want to force customers to, come and do everything on our platform, whether it is our internet banking platform or our mobile apps, right? We are okay if, our products and services are being availed by the partners, by the, customers on, various, our partner platforms. And to enable that, I think what we have done is that we have created, something called ICICI Developer Portal, right, where we have hosted some 300 plus APIs. Now, it's a completely open innovation platform where, our partners can come around, toggle it around with our APIs, integrate it. Not only that, we have kind of, also demonstrated sample journeys, sample use cases, right? And those APIs are very well documented with a lot of these examples, right? So with this, the integration journey, I mean, if you ask anyone, the commercial part is easier, where when two parties come together and they want to do business, I think commercial part is kind of very easy to crack and done. And the second phase, when it comes about technical integration, that's where, the real challenges come in. And that's where I think, Anupam has a great role to play, right? I mean, they bring in a lot of this, support, where on one side, if, you are tech savvy, but your partner is not tech savvy, right? I mean, you also have to enable your partner. It's not, the story is not that if you have done everything on your own, it's also about your partner also. So I think at ICICI, we've done this developer portal, which is kind of one of the key, defining moment in terms of, partnerships, where these are on-the-go APIs, easy to understand, very simplified way to integrate. And these are standards, right? I mean, kind of which is very well published, so people know about it, right? So that's, I think, one of the bigger step, when we have kind of embark on this journey. The second step is like, we have partnered with multiple players, right? To give an example, like there are certain accounting platforms, there are some payroll platforms, right? Where we have integrated our APIs, and, the customers can do banking, using those platforms, right? Some of the neobanks on the, merchant side. We are enabling the entire banking suite of products on those platforms, right? So, and we understand that as a bank, probably we may not be able to offer the entire set of, services which a merchant or a customer wants, right? I mean, so we also launched something called, InstaBiz, which is all comprehensive, kind of a suite of products and services which are embedded into one platform, which any merchant or trader or businesses, would like to, use and avail. So I think the thought process is about how do we enable partnerships in much more simpler and easier way, and create win-win for partners, for customers, and for us.
No, thanks, Sudesh. It's like Google of the banking service, right? You open APIs and let everyone kind of use them. So, yeah. So, Anupam, basically, like you said, right? I think you saw that there is not much happening, and now you've kind of jumped the ship and been on the other side. One of the things with fintechs is that the regulator always says that you have to be on the right side of regulations. So in your journey as a startup founder, what are the challenges that you saw, especially meeting all the regulations while you're talking about open finance?
So I will touch upon a couple of pieces, right, on this. I mean, whenever we founded Upswing, we have always said that we provide compliance and infosec solution, right? In fact, to our investors, when we pitch, we say, we are a compliance and infosec company and not a banking as a service company. Because finally, both on the left side and right side, the left side, because in embedded finance, the kind of entities which will come to partner with you, they don't understand much of banking, right? They don't want banking as a service to be a revenue generator, to be a customer stickiness point, to be a driver of app activation, but they don't want it to be intrusive in their everyday life and business, right? So therefore, one of the pieces which we have built is that it has inbuilt compliance. That means the B2C entity does not have to do much of regulatory requirement work so that, it does not hamper, right? So that's on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, it's unique, right? Obviously, because banks understand compliance, and we essentially try to work with a lot of smaller and mid-sized bank. And now Abhijit has promised that, he will work with us. So, so when we work with them, obviously different entities are in different wavelengths of compliance. And let us kind of accept this, that there are different wavelengths of compliance. And what we try to do is that I think standardization is the key to everything, right? I think we have seen in the payments world, everything became a success because of standardization. And therefore, what we try to do working with so many multiple entities across deposits, across cards, across lending, we try to bring in a level of standardization. What it helps to do is that almost everybody, when they speak to the regulator, because they will always be the front end of our communication, they will speak the same language, right? That this is what we are doing, these are the 4 protective steps we are taking, this is how KYC is happening, this is how payments is happening, this is how data exchange is happening, this is how data is getting stored. The moment you start standardizing it from bank A to bank B to bank C to bank D, then you have a common story which emerges. Then what happens is that, let us accept the fact that there is no regulation on banking as a service today, right? And the way the regulator is approaching the market always is that it observes, but does not necessarily bring a regulation in the initial days. And lets it travel a distance, and then starts bringing in regulation at this point of time. So therefore, we strongly believe that from last 2 decades of experience of what the regulator is thinking, what are the basic principles you should follow in self-regulation, and build very standardized compliances inside your organization and when you talk to other organizations, and then build that into the stack, and therefore build standardized flows across all retail banking products so that the amount of gray area you are able to reduce consistently. So that's what broadly which we do at a day-to-day level. So we say that what we give has inbuilt compliance both on the left side and right side.
This is great to actually first, of course, being a banker, Anupam understands compliance very well and the importance of that. So this is great to hear from the new age fintech. Now coming to Puneet, Puneet, basically Finacle has been kind of a very robust system for many banks, I think for many decades now. And basically changing a system, whether I'll call it a legacy system, to actually meet the new norms of APIs and all. How do you see that, and what's your view of how do you see this as a future?
Thank you, Manish, and you're right. We are a system which got launched in year 2000, so we are in our 24th year as a system, but it's not the same system which got launched. It got gone through many years of evolution. And we were very fortunate. Even when we started in year 2000, the technology was evolved. So even the first version of Finacle was completely SOA-based application. It was completely open. It was designed for scale because we started in India. And many of those virtues really helped us evolve much easily. So today, the Finacle system, latest system is completely cloud native. We have clients globally running on AWS, Microsoft Azure. It's an event-driven architecture. It offers full suite of RESTful buy-in-inspired APIs. So all of it has gone through the journey, and I think a lot of credit goes to a lot of banks on the stage as well as in the audience. We co-innovated with them. So today, when we take great pride that India is absolutely the shining star when it comes to fintech, it has happened because we had leapfrogged the technology which was existing in Western markets. And therefore, this, the label of legacy is a risky label in India. It doesn't matter actually. In our case, we have clients today in India wherein they are processing 150 million APIs a day on our solution. Bulk of UPI transactions eventually gets processed in Finacle core banking system. Increasingly, clients are going in and evolving the lending system on Finacle because they're realizing that as we go forward, there'll be so many more low-value lending opportunities, and you need systems which are resilient and which can scale. Increasingly, we see a significant adoption for our wealth management in the similar point of view, wherein there is a micro-investment opportunities emerging. So we are very bullish about the entire OpenFinance ecosystem. What we have done to give it a scale, so that people like Anupam can help the industry even actively. In past, Finacle offered a lot of proprietary APIs. You needed to know a Finacle to operate and use them well. We have abstracted out that complexity. We took buy-in as a standard. We took that inspiration because we are a global player, we serve in 100 countries, and created buy-and-inspired APIs where you don't need to know Finacle, you just need to know banking. We have opened up variety of events which are streaming data out of Finacle on a real-time basis that is happening in Finacle. We have created consent-based data sharing mechanism so that what Mahesh said, with consent, you can share data and use data for certain purposes. We have created third-party partners like BaaS service providers to be managed by the bank easily. See, large banks like ICICI, HDFC, Kotak can invest in the talent which is required to create those developer portals and experiences. But we also service a lot of small clients who do not have that kind of technology budget. So we've created plug-and-play developer portals which can be deployed. So those are the things which we did so that we can contribute to this journey of open finance in the country. And we are bullish. We are learning a lot in India, but we are also learning a lot in other markets. One of the remarkable experience I would like to share is in the US, when Goldman Sachs partnered with Apple, we all know that is the finest use case of what scale can happen. It's an affluent market. It's not easy to compare, those numbers here. But $10 billion in deposit in 3.5 months is remarkable. I think the good news is it also runs on Finacle.
This is amazing. So, thank you. I think this is, and I think we are unleashing as a country. We are unleashing the X factor and we'll leapfrog. I think every single country. We are known to be the innovators of the world, especially in the financial services business. So, thank you, everyone. We are open to questions. So, if there's any question for the panelists.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I'm Professor Kurpesh here. I come from the fintech education background. So now one question when I teach my students is digital banking and everything. Interesting question comes up. And it's a very varied question when I look at it because I work into industry also as an investment banker and as an economist. So I can actually relate the questions. Today I can switch from Swiggy to Zomato just for a 10-50 rupees discount. But when tomorrow, when I have an open BaaS platform where all the banks are sharing their data, their customer, our banks are ready to give away the customer data. Like I can have a deposit account in HDFC Bank, but I want to open an FD in ICICI Bank just for that 25-50% extra point which I am getting. So where today banks are fighting for name, okay, how our banks are ready to share their data. Platforms is okay, neo banks are coming in, they are tying up with multiple banks. Customer what a choice. Today, I cannot open a FD in another bank because they are asking for KYC. They are asking for open a saving account with us. Then only I am going to open FD with you. So, for customer want a multiple choice, but our banks are ready to share the customer data.
I think that's already, kind of, I don't know if you attended the previous session taken by Mahesh from Samati, right?
Yeah.
So, account aggregation framework, it's already in place now where, all the financial institutions, can share the data amongst themselves with the consent of the customer. So, the customer is the owner of the data and customer decides, whom to share what data. And it just happened on a click of a button, so I don't know if you have used it or not. So you can.
I have used. I'm already.
So
I'm using the.
So that's already now kind of which is already kind of now working, right? And we'll see more and more other data sets, which will be shared, as more and more, kind of institutions or frameworks they become part of the account aggregation network. All those data also would be shared. Can be shared by the consent of the customer to financial institutions or to other institutions.
No, my question was not that. My question was, our banks are ready for that competition. See, BaaS, banking as a
you
service.
already compete, no?
Right.
Whichever bank is the most, so I mean, so the customer, I think every customer have different, aspirations, right? Some people want better service, some customers want better rates, some customers go with the brand. Some customers are wanting to, see that which are the most secured banks, right? I mean, so these are different and also segment-wise also, persona-wise also customers, expect different things and banks, pitch to their customers with the different sets of features and USPs, right? I mean, so that's already, if that's the question you are asking or. I have not
Yeah,
understood
no,
it.
no, I think you should right. So I think UPI, right, when it launched in 2014, I think 2016, this was the same challenge, right? How do I share my data for somebody else to actually access banking as a service? Interestingly, to your question, I think Anupam will be the best to answer because the same FD piece is something that they already provide. So Anupam, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, see, customer is the owner of the data. Everybody has accepted is the DPDP will also set this up. Accessibility to customer to give access to data to various financial providers will increase gradually, right? And that is about data sharing. The second part is about KYC sharing. I think the SEBI has done a very good job on the KYC sharing part where you are able to seamlessly move across platforms on KYC. Is that seamlessness there in the banking world? The answer is no, that seamlessness is not there in the banking world. CKYC was implemented, but CKYC has its own set of problems on data quality, access, and RBI therefore being comfortable on especially the AML part of it, on the sanctity of it. So therefore, today one of the challenges is seamlessness of KYC, as you one rightly said. Second is that, as you said, that you may want to shift your banking relationship for 50 basis points, right? And rightly so. In home loans, people do shift their relationships for 25, 50 basis points, and customers should have a right to it. I think that is what embedded finance is trying to solve, because what happens is that we say technology is a great leveler, right? But if you see in banking, technology has been accessed by various banks, and for example, Infosys is serving smaller banks as well as larger banks. But the point is that has in the last 10 or 12, 14 years, any smaller bank with use of technology been able to really compete with a large bank and become large? That data point is not there. Then technology, even though they have been accessible, has not helped those banks reach out to all the people around in this room. What does XaaS do essentially, or whatever we put a name to, is that it ensures that you are able to access those banks across various platforms. Right? And therefore, as banks go to the moment of truth, right? Where, as Hitesh was saying, that is the bank present in the moment of truth. During the moment of truth, it needs to happen instantaneously, seamlessly. That is when the level playing platform is there for a smaller bank as well as to a larger bank, then the real scale of XaaS you will start encountering it.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we'll take one more question actually. We're kind of running short of time. Yeah.
My question is to Mr. Abhijit and Mr. Hitesh. And we built the GenAI layer on top of banking as a service and embedded finance. So this question goes to generative AI. So I see earlier Mr. Ramesh from HDFC Bank said that they are adopting GPT through Microsoft. The problem that I see with India vis-a-vis, let's say, Citibank or Bank of America, Citibank has allocated the funds for generative AI to own the technology, where we see the Indian banks adopting the technology, not owning the technology. Now, the repercussion of that is, I'll give you one example. हमारा एक user बोलता है कि ये गाड़ी मेरी औकात से बाहर है. And this is a very emotional embedded finance data which is buried inside there, and our bankers are not going to have access to it, while Microsoft and Citibank will have. So my question especially to Mr. Hitesh is, how can we engage the early stage, innovation? I talked to your department also, they take a very late stage, but this innovation is, has to be caught very early.
So, so GenAI, are we kind of trying to, so let me divide it in two parts, right? So one is the prompt engineering, right? And second is the, the large language models. Can we fine tune it, right? See, building a large language model is a very different ball game, okay? So, do we need to spend time and energy in building an LLM? Answer is, somewhere, not immediately. I mean, there are multiple LLMs, open source and enterprise grade, both are available, right? I mean, what is the need of the day is that how do you kind of create a better prompt engineering, and can you fine tune an LLM, right? And then solve some of the use cases, whether it is, for your customers, whether it is for your employees, depending on the use case you want to embark upon that, right? So I think we have, kind of interacted with many players, and people are still figuring out. It's evolving, right, today. And there are two, kind of approaches, right? One is you go with enterprise grade, like you said about Microsoft, GPT-4, or there are, LLMs like Llama 2, right, where it's an open source. The ability to fine tune, those models, right? We are seeing very few, startups have that ability to fine tune LLMs, right? I mean, so most of them are focused on prompt engineering, right? I mean, it's basic, surface level innovation. I think deep down we all need to, spend more time, more efforts, and, do something more meaningful, right? And that's where, and then you move to RAS, right? I mean, so that's the third layer which, one needs to, but at least move from prompt engineering to fine tuning LLMs, and then you will find out that there are many takers for it, right? Because the results will be very different, and it's something which is proprietary, long term, right? So as an institution, we are looking at, can we have our own, let's say fine tune LLMs, and then see, I'm saying one has to also think, can I be LLM agnostic, right? I mean, today, if I marry to a particular LLM, you never know, tomorrow something else comes up, right, which is much better, much more cost effective. So do you want to marry to a particular LLM? These are again, very strategic, kind of decisions one has to take. So I think this is in journey which is evolving, and we'll see many more kind of, innovations which will come on top of, this thing is that one should be more focused on use cases, right? And develop an ability to kind of, fine tune some of those LLMs. And then maybe we'll move towards LAMs, I mean, large action models as we move forward, right? We'll kind of.
So just
that's
one
our-
point. So this will
Sorry,
take roughly
if we can,
just 2 seconds.
maybe we'll take this question offline if that's okay. I
Yes,
think we're
please.
running a little late.
We're running a little behind schedule.
I'll be all offline. We can.
Thank you
have
so
more
much, gentlemen. Very, very interesting session. And yes, like they said, you can take the session outside now and have a one-to-one. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Can we have a photograph, please? Now we'll delve into the transformative discussion in our next speaker session titled Convergence of Digital Payments and Credit, a Catalyst for Economic Growth.